Hi guys, let's begin with the next chapter, and now we are actually starting with the different kind of viruses. So we are first starting with the DNA virus family. I hope you all remember the mnemonic of the DNA viruses, that is happy. And under it, the first thing that we are going to consider is the herpes viridae family. So a lot of herpes coming up your way. Let's first begin with the classification of the herpes viridae. So we have human herpes virus, HHV will stand for human herpes virus. And this is going to go on from 1 to 8. So first and foremost, let me sort out the simpler ones. Human herpes virus 6, 7 and 8 are known by the same names, 6, 7 and 8, right? Human herpes virus 1, 2 and 3 are a separate group because they belong to herpes simplex wala variety. So this means this is going to be herpes simplex 1 and this is going to be herpes simplex 2. How simple? Human herpes virus 1 and 2 is nothing but herpes simplex virus 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 is 1 and 2. But what is human herpes virus 3? That is also part of that family. But that is known as herpes zoster virus. Okay, it's going to cause chicken pox, zoster. So herpes zoster virus. So simple. 1 is going to cause HSV1, 2 is going to cause HSV2, 3 is going to cause herpes zoster. What is 4? 4 is Epstein-Barr virus. And fifth one, bigger number, that is cytomegalovirus. And cytomegalovirus is the largest member of this family. Of the name, of course, suggests us cytomegalovirus. Okay? So now this is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to study one by one from 1 to 8. We'll study everything. But first, let's do a basic overview. Let me see how much of general virology you have revised. So tell me the general properties. What is the size? 150 to 200 nanometers. Can you please revise with me what was the largest virus? The largest was pox, which was somewhere around 300 nanometers. And the smallest was parvo, which was parvo. Remember parvo from Devdas? And parvo was very, very tiny, 20 nanometer. The largest was pox, 300 nanometers. This is somewhere near to pox. So herpes viridae family 150 to 200 nanometers. It's the second largest. What is the symmetry? I had told you all the DNA viruses. All the DNA viruses that you have a icosahedral symmetry. And icosahedral symmetry except pox. Pox was complex. Remember, pox had complex symmetry, but icosahedral for all other DNA viruses. What kind of DNA? All DNA viruses are double-stranded except parvovirus. Parvo was single-stranded, rest all are double-stranded. So this is a 150 to 200 nanometer icosahedral double-stranded DNA. So like I said, now you won't have to repeat all of this because if you've done a general virology, your concepts are clear. Now let's go on to the classification that is followed. Instead of putting it HHV 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they put it into alpha, beta, gamma. Means the ones that I'm talking about, that is HHV 1, 2 and 3. Can you recall their names? They were herpes simplex virus 1 and 2 and herpes zoster virus. You know, where do they reside? They reside in the neurons, their latency. Where are they going to sit? In the neurons. That is why they are put under one category, subfamily called the alpha herpes viridae. Then next number kya hai? 4 and 4 ka double 8. What was 4? Guys, 4 was Epstein-Barr virus and 8 is human herpes virus 8. They have been put under the gamma category. Why? Because they have a common site of latency, that is the B cells. In a while you will see Epstein-Barr virus goes to B cells. Human herpes virus 8 also looks like a B. So that is also going to go to the B cells. Okay? So simple to learn. Epstein-Barr virus is going to have a B and B looks like, of course, B will be B. Whereas human herpes virus 8 looks like a B. So that is also going to be involving the B cells. Ab kya bacha? Now ma'am, the T cells are left. Who are going to go to the glands and the T cells? The numbers that are left. That is 5, 6 and 7. So human herpes virus 5, which is nothing but cytomegalovirus, along with 6 and 7, they are going to go to somewhere in the glands and T cells and they are said to be the beta variety. So simple, we have alpha, beta and gamma subfamilies. Alpha has 1, 2, 3, then 4 and 8 go under gamma and remaining numbers come under beta. Let's begin one by one. My first set of discussion is going to be the HSV 1 and 2, herpes simplex virus 1 and 2, which I'm going to take up in the form of a diagram or a table. So simple. Above the waist is HSV1 and below the waist is HSV2. What did I say? Above the waist. I'm going to change the table a little, okay, for our mnemonics. Above the waist, whenever they say there is an orofacial lesion, something to do with herpes labialis or, you know, anything to do with the face, gingivostomatitis, kuch bhi much above the face, anything to do with orofacial lesions, it is HSV1. Then they say any kind of skin lesion above the waist, HSV1. Brain, of course, is much above the waist, so of course HSV1. So encephalitis, meningitis, these are all HSV1. What is going to be HSV2? Everything below the waist. So below the waist, to genital hoga. So of course, when they say genital lesions hua hai, anything that is coming below the waist will be HSV2. Also, mother to child means neonatal herpes. Anything that has gone from mother to child, of course, that is also mother to child through the vaginal tract only, na? Through the intrauterine or vaginal tract. So below the waist. So anything below the waist, including neonatal, is going to be HSV2. So now tell me the transmission of these two. So obviously, if you're talking about orofacial lesions and skin lesions above the waist, this means this has come either from skin or from mucosa. The entry has either been the mucosa or the skin. And if you're saying HSV2 is below the waist and it is everything like genital matlab sexual hoga, and neonatal matlab mother to child hoga. So there is going to be sexual and vertical. Vertical means mother to child. Right, so HSV2 has sexual and mother to child transmission. What is their latency? So now latency, tell me. Again, think of above the waist and below the waist. Above the waist wala will be latent in the trigeminal ganglia. Below the waist one will be latent in the sacral ganglia. Age group is also simple. When you're talking about genitals, of course, you're talking about sexual and genitals. So you're talking about adults. So HSV2 genital wala is in adults. Unless you're talking about neonatal, then that is different. But HSV1 then becomes more common, not in children, but younger people, I would say. Okay? So if you would have just learnt a very simple trick of HSV1 is everything above the waist and HSV2 is going to be below the waist, life becomes much simpler. Now let's come to the microbiology part. Who is going to show you a growth on chick embryo fibroblast? So who is going to grow well? HSV2. Who is going to be more virulent and more resistant? All the more things. HSV2, the elder brother, says, I will grow on the chick embryo fibroblast cell line. I will be more virulent, neurovirulent, and I am going to cause drug resistance. Whereas HSV1 is not going to grow well and is going to be less drug resistant, less virulent. Okay, so all this basic is done. Now let's go into the details. Let me ask you. They say there is a case of herpes and you said orofacial mucosal lesions. Orofacial, HSV1 or 2? Of course, we will say HSV1 is going to be the more common. But what is the most common site where it's going to occur? Most commonly, it's going to be the buccal mucosa. And if you're saying buccal mucosa, what is the lesion in the buccal mucosa that is going to be there? It is gingivostomatitis. So the lesion that you will have in the buccal mucosa is gingivostomatitis. Primary lesion. If a lesion is happening the first time, it is gingivostomatitis. But if they say which is the most common recurrent lesion, bar hoga, so that is going to be herpes labialis. That is known as herpes labialis. So please note these three questions. Question number 1, most common site buccal mucosa, kya hoga first time? Gingivostomatitis. If it has to have multiple times, repeated times, then it's going to be herpes labialis. So orofacial lesions ho gaya. Let's pick up the next organ. Let's talk about CNS infections. Now tell me one thing. CNS, much above the waist. So what are you expecting? HSV1 I am expecting should be much more common than HSV2. So encephalitis mein, there are two questions coming to me. This is the most common cause of acute sporadic viral encephalitis in the world. Acute sporadic viral encephalitis is going to be HSV1, and which is the part of the brain that is affected? It is usually the temporal lobe that is affected. Okay? So the most common cause of acute sporadic viral encephalitis. But listen to me carefully. This was encephalitis, fine. If they ask you about meningitis and they particularly ask you about mollaret meningitis. Firstly, you will ask me what is mollaret meningitis. It is a kind of a recurrent lymphocytic. Dekho, mollaret had lots of L's. Mollaret had lots of L's. So it is a recurrent lymphocytic meningitis. It is a recurrent lymphocytic meningitis that is there. So now this, you will say meningitis hai, to ma'am anything above the waist is more common with HSV1, but that's the trick. This is more commonly seen with HSV2. That is what I want you to know a catch for. So remember, mollaret meningitis, which is lymphocytic meningitis, is more common with HSV. Let's move on to the next one. Ocular. Ocular lesions kiske saath zyada honge? Common sense, ma'am. This is also much above the waist. So HSV1 is going to be more responsible than 2 for the ocular regions. And what are you talking about? You are talking about dendritic corneal ulcers. We are talking about dendritic corneal ulcers. Finally, coming to genital lesions. Come on, this is understood. Finally, I come down to genital lesions, and I know HSV2 is going to be more common. So, whenever a genital lesion, I'll show you a picture. You can see a lot of genital ulcers formed over here. Whenever a genital picture comes, you ask me painless? Yeah, painful. So, what is the condition going to be? It is going to be bilateral painful vesicles with painful inguinal lymphadenopathy. By now, you have finished bacteriology. You know what are all the genital ulcers which are going to be painful. Can you quickly give me a history, a quick 1, 2? There are just 2 genital ulcers which are going to come with a lot of pain. Painful ulcers. The first one is in front of you, that is herpes simplex virus 2. And what was the other one? Where in bacteriology? Haemophilus ducrei. Because I told you ducrei may the patient is gonna cry with pain. There is going to be a lot of pain. So remember, herpes simplex virus 2 and there is going to be Haemophilus ducrei. They are the ones which are going to come as painful ulcers. Okay? So coming back, they are painful, not only painful vesicles and ulcers, but also the lymph node that is formed is going to be painful. That is the genital ulcers. Finally, we come down to miscellaneous wala. So can healthcare workers also have this? Yes, we are dealing with patients. We are handling their lesions. We can also have it. So what is that known as? So maybe this is the kind of a lesion that can come up in a healthcare worker who's dealing with patients, and that is known as herpetic whitlow. Herpetic whitlow is something which is seen in the hands of the healthcare workers, right? You've seen that, you will remember it. So while dealing with patients, you have to take precautions. Is there something that is known as herpes gladiatorum? Gladiatorum, gladiator jaisa, something big, bulky, heavy it is sounding like. So this is the one that is known as wrestler's herpes. So gladiatorum, gladiator jaisa, wrestler's herpes. Other than that, it is associated with eczema herpeticum and erythema multiforme. These are other miscellaneous things. I expect a question either on gladiatorum, that is wrestler's herpes, and herpetic whitlow, which is going to be in the simple. Herpetic whitlow is hospital workers or healthcare workers. Healthcare workers में there is going to be herpetic whitlow. ठीक है? Chalo, now moving forward, let's do the lab diagnosis. You have this question which has been asked 10 times. So I'll put like 10 star if I can add, not even 5 star. 10 star question. What do we do a Zank smear for? Zank smear is done for everything. It is done for HSV1, it can be done for HSV2, it can even be done for that herpes zoster virus abhi baad mein. So you will ultimately realize that the disadvantage is that it cannot differentiate between any of these. It is done for everything. Therefore, and also one more problem is iska sensitivity is low. So what exactly is a Zank smear? So Zank smear jo hum lete, please note a Zank smear is going to be taken from. So the first question is where and how is a Zank smear taken from? So whatever lesion you are dealing with, whether it is above the waist or below the waist, you are going to unroof the vesicle. So ideally you prefer that you should take a fresh vesicle rather than a crusted one. But even if it's crusted, you first have to remove the crust and then you are going to scrape the base of that particular lesion. Whatever lesion is there, you scrape the base and then you stain it with what? There are a couple of stains that are there. Giemsa or Wright stain. Do you remember from pathology, Giemsa or Wright stain come under which family? They come under the Romanowsky stain families, right? So they are the Romanowsky stains you can use, or you can use the toluidine blue. And what are you going to see? That is the question. I'm not going to tell you that. We already know. I've told you in the previous chapter. What do you see in herpes simplex or herpes zoster virus? What is the cytopathic effect? I told you, you see the 3 M's. What is 3 M's? We'll quickly repeat. Same slide from the previous chapter I've got you. Number 1, it shows you multinucleation. So none, 2, 3, 4, 5, lots of nuclei. All of them are fitting into each other. That is molding. All of them are fitting into each other. That is molding. And finally, there is going to be margination of the chromatin. So remember, multinucleation, molding, margination. And there's another test that I'm taking. Which body do you see? Abhi padha hai previous chapter. You have to be knowing. We see the famous Cowdry type A bodies. Very good. Naam yaad aa raha hai? What is the name? Leib-Schultz bodies. Leib-Schultz bodies, yes. And now your story is complete. If you were able to answer this, tick mark karo, give a pat on your back. You have done general virology very, very well. So Zank smear ho gaya, but the problem is that its sensitivity is low and it has a disadvantage that you cannot differentiate between the other species. Chalo, done. What else? Ma'am, Zank smear to anyway you said ke zyada useful nahi. So theek hai, kar liya. Which is the best thing? The best is isolate. Like in bacteria, I used to say culture media, best Back blood agar, chocolate agar, all those. Here you can't use culture media. Here what do you use? You do some kind of cell line. So you're gonna isolate it and grow it in some kind of a cell line. That is one definitive way. Can you do DNA testing? Of course, we can do PCR. We can do PCR, which is also said to be very sensitive. But the problem is that PCR cannot differentiate HSV1 from HSV2. Why? You don't need to know the why as such, but let me tell you, HSV1 and HSV2, approximately 80% of the antigens are the same in them. So PCR will, how will it differentiate? When both of them are almost like twin brothers, how will a PCR differentiate? So PCR is also not able to. What else can we do? We can do DNA studies. How are DNA studies done? DNA studies are done by polymerase chain reaction. Yes, this is gonna definitely be sensitive. And we know that this can differentiate between HSV1 and HSV2. This can differentiate between HSV1 and HSV2, although there are very minor differences in the antigen homology of HSV1 and HSV2, but PCR can do that. Finally, what are we going to do in serology? Like always, we do ELISA, and if there is a four-fold increase, in antibodies, it is suggestive of herpes. What is going to be the drug of choice? Before I go on to that, kya kara? You did a Zank smear for seeing that triple M. Then you did viral isolation in cell lines. You've done DNA, which is sensitive, and you've done serology with ELISA. 4 times increase in antibodies suggestive. What is the drug of choice? We are going to definitely go on with acyclovir. And what is acyclovir? Why are we giving it? Because this is going to go. What is the mechanism of action? It inhibits the DNA polymerase. That is the mechanism of action that you all have studied, right? It inhibits the DNA polymerase. Now also tell me that if there is resistance to acyclovir, what is the drug given in pharmacology? Then there is going to be foscarnet. Foscarnet if there is resistance to acyclovir. Done. Okay, so this was all about herpes simplex 1 and 2. Now let's go on to human herpes virus 3. Human herpes virus 3 is known as herpes zoster or varicella zoster. Of course, it causes zoster. But till the time it is occurring, usually you know, chickenpox is usually going to occur in children. So in children, it is referred to as chickenpox. And in adults, it is referred to as herpes zoster or shingles. So let us start one by one. Bachcho wala, let us start. That is going to be chickenpox. Come on, these are questions you've studied in medicine, pediatrics, PSM, so many places. So you know much more. What is the incubation period? It is roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Now tell me, chickenpox, C for chickenpox, does it start centripetal or does it start centrifugal? Matlab center mein, will it start on the trunk, centripetal, or will it start on the extremities, that is centrifugal? So remember, chickenpox, centripetal. How simple. Chickenpox, centripetal is going to be, centripetal means it will first start on the trunk. So if I draw a funny looking man over here, I will say they are bilateral diffuse rashes which have started on the trunk. So CP mein CP. Chickenpox mein there is going to be centripetal distribution that I notice. After starting on the trunk, then where will it spread? Then it's going to spread centrifugally. So centrifugally means that it's going to go on to the flexor surface of the extremities. Also, these rashes don't come up in one form. How do they come? They come as crops. And please note that there is fever with each crop. There is fever with each crop that is going to be there. How do these rashes look like? They can take so many stages. So everything that you read in dermatology, they can be macules, papules, they can be vesicles, they can be pustules. Basically, it's a pleomorphic rash. But there is one very classical description that they give of it. They say this is usually a vesicle and that is surrounded by a reddish area. Can you see? There is a vesicle over here and it is surrounded by a reddish erythematous area. So what is this known as? This is like a dewdrop. That vesicle is like a dewdrop on the reddish rose petal. Dewdrop on rose petal appearance is the classical description of the chickenpox rash. But I've told you chickenpox rash is pleomorphic. It can take any of these forms. But I've told you chickenpox occurs in children. If it occurs in adults, if chickenpox is going to occur in adults, it is said to be more severe. And more severe are the lesions also. The lesions tend to be hemorrhagic and bullous. We get to see hemorrhagic and bullous lesions if it tends to occur in adults. Now let's talk about someone who has chickenpox. What is his infectivity? For when will he carry immunity? So the infectivity is few days before to few days after the rash. So remember, if this is the period of the rash in the patient, 2 days before the rash And 5 days after the rash, he is maximally infective and he's going to spread it around. But we know that once someone has chickenpox, that immunity is said to be for a lifelong. Although now they say that immunity does go down and you need booster doses, but textbooks still mention that the immunity for a lifetime. And who is the reservoir? We are only the reservoir, we are only the patient, sab kuch hum hai. We are only the reservoirs, we are only the source of infection. And is there any carrier state? No, carrier state is not known. So hum hi reservoir, hum hi patient, we are only the source, and there is no carrier state. So now let's say that someone had chickenpox, and you know chickenpox is a self-limiting disorder, you need supportive treatment. But what are the complications that someone can have? So please note, chickenpox is because of a virus. It is a skin condition happening because of a virus. Now on top of that, if a bacterial infection occurs, so the most common complication is going to be secondary bacterial infection. That is, a secondary bacterial infection occurs, तो वो problem होगा ma'am. Then you will have to give some treatment because it's no longer just a viral infection. तो ये तो स्किन के ऊपर स्किन का प्रॉब्लम है ना. चिकन पॉक्स वाज अ स्किन प्रॉब्लम. नाउ आई एम सेइंग another bacterial skin infection occurs, that is also skin infection, right? But if they ask you which is the extracutaneous complication, that is CNS involvement. And what happens in the CNS? Please note, there is benign cerebellar ataxia. That is a problem that can happen outside the skin. तो skin के अलावा CNS, benign cerebellar ataxia. But what is the most serious? Imagine a mother getting infected during her pregnancy. So varicella pneumonia that happens during pregnancy. Varicella pneumonia means pregnant lady ka lungs getting affected. And not only are her lungs getting affected, but does she have a transmission risk to the child also? Yes. So please remember, the most serious is going to be pregnancy wala varicella pneumonia in the mother, and from the mother going on to the child. So 3 questions over here, jaldi repeat. Most common infection, skin pe skin, that is bacterial infection. Second, outside the skin, it is CNS, cerebellar ataxia. Now we come to the serious one, that is varicella pneumonia. Right now I said that this will then from pregnant lady will go on to the child also, na? So let's consider the fetal forms also. If it goes to the child, what is the fetus going to have? What is fetal or congenital varicella syndrome? When do you say? See, there are 2 things. You need to know the difference. There is a fetal varicella syndrome. There is a neonatal varicella syndrome. Fetal matlab the child was born with it. Born with it, why? Because this infection occurred within less than 20 weeks of intrauterine life. First trimester mein the mother was already infected. In the first trimester, she has given the disease to the kid. Now, if the kid is born, you can see 2 things. Very, very classically, if you zoom in over here, you will appreciate that there are some scar. Can you see these whitish cicatricial lesions? 1. And can you see this limb is looking hypoplastic? So these 2 are the most famous thing. Everyone get in touch with this. You see some scarring kind of lesions called cicatricial skin lesions, and the limb is not developed. That is limb hypoplasia. Apart from that, there is also a problem in the skull development and the brain also. So remember, microcephaly. Microcephaly is there, and there is a brain problem like cortical atrophy. So सब छोटा 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 हो रहा है. Remember, chicken pox में या chicken pox, you can say the varicella congenital वाला, सब कुछ is becoming छोटा छोटा. The limbs are becoming small. The skin is scarring and becoming small. The cortical atrophy matlab becoming small. The skull becoming small. So everything is becoming small. That is the problem. That is if the fetus contracted the infection within 20 weeks of intrauterine life. But if you say that, ma'am, in the first and the second trimester, mother only did not have chickenpox. Mother has ended up having the disease later on in her pregnancy. If the mother has ended up having the disease later on in the pregnancy, then what is going to be the situation? Please note that maximum risk of her transferring the disease or this condition to the child is going to be somewhere around delivery, because that is when the maximum contact happens between mother and child, right? So 5 days before to 2 days after delivery. Rash se ulta tha. Remember, rash mein infectivity was 2 days before to 5 days after. Here they are saying that the mother is maximum chances of transmission. Maximum chances of transmission are from 5 days before the delivery to 2 days after the delivery. And remember, this will result in neonatal varicella syndrome, and the neonatal will have new organs getting affected all over the body, matlab disseminated. The neonatal form will have new disseminated organs getting affected. How are you finally going to do the diagnosis? Whatever skin lesions or whatever lesions the child has, you take a biopsy or you take a sample from there and you do a polymerase chain reaction. But you also need to know how will you treat this child. So देखो, every mother, if a mother has had, there are two situations, listen to that carefully. Mother has had varicella late in the pregnancy. You can see that, okay, mother ko to chickenpox ho gaya and it's third trimester, you cannot even terminate. So now what are you going to do? You have two situations. The child is born. To look at, the child doesn't have any lesions as of now. Okay? So to look at, the child is not going to have any lesions as of now. Do you leave the child as it is? No, you still give prophylactic treatment. So remember that your treatment with acyclovir still has to be given prophylactically. Even if you don't see any skin lesions in the child, you still give it. And please remember, if the skin lesions appear, if skin lesions are going to appear, then in that case, you are then going to give a varicella immunoglobulin also to the neonate. The neonate, if skin lesions appear. So two situations. बच्चा देखने में बिल्कुल ठीक है, you still give prophylactic acyclovir. But if the child now starts developing lesions, in addition, you will also give a varicella zoster immunoglobulin. Usually they say it should be given within 94 hours of exposure. Within 94 hours of exposure, you should be giving. So now that I'm talking about immunoglobulin, I want to ask you one thing. Is there any vaccine? Yes, there is a vaccine. There is a vaccine which uses OCA strain. OCA strain wala vaccine hota hai, and you have to give it as 2 doses. You don't need to know the duration as such, but remember OCA strain ka 2 doses ka vaccine is for chickenpox, to prevent it, of course. Okay, so this was all about the very, very famous chickenpox happening in children. What about adults? What is herpes zoster virus causing in adults? It is causing zoster or shingles. So I can tell you a story. Someone had chickenpox in his or her childhood, and that chickenpox ended up going and hiding somewhere in the body. So the chickenpox has gone and hidden in some ganglion, trigeminal ganglion, sacral ganglion, geniculate ganglion. It has gone and hidden somewhere, and after few years, that will get reactivated. So in which situation will it get reactivated? When the person is very, very old. So in elderly people, or whenever the immunity of the person goes down. Immunity could go down because of some kind of malnourishment. Immunity could go down because of some kind of, any HIV agar positive ho gaya, to of course the immunity will go down. So any situation, prolonged fasting, any situation which lowers the immunity, and the herpes zoster will get reactivated. So how will I guess this? Because you can see the rash is a little characteristic. It's occurring along a dermatome. So please remember, this is going to be a rash which is unilateral, and compare it with chickenpox. Chickenpox wala jo rash tha, that was bilateral and everywhere. This is, you can see, this is unilateral, this is segmental and painful. So this pain criteria is quite important. It is painful and unilateral. But why is it segmental? It is segmental because it has a dermatomal distribution. Please note that D3 to L2. D3 to L2 are the most common dermatomes that you need to consider. So why is it occurring only in segments? They will always say one part of the lower back, unilateral lower back, or unilateral thoracic back. So basically one segment, one dermatome is affected. So D3 to L2 is the most common dermatome affected, and it is unilateral word. Please mat bhulna. It is very, very, very important. So now what are you going to do? You will say, ma'am, what if by chance, let's consider, you are saying that there is going to be two things. There's going to be a rash, which is going to be along a dermatome, and patient is going to say that he's having a lot of pain also in that region. So two things patient will say, rash hai, pain hai. If patient just says, arey, pain hai, but you're like, okay, pain hai, show me that area, but you don't see any rash. What am I saying? If the patient comes to you and says that there is a pain in some dermatome, but there is no skin lesion, that is known as zoster sine herpeti. Zoster sine herpeti means, you will never get confused. You will get to know that haan, ye herpes zoster hi hai. But what is minus? So remember the skin. So you will feel that patient is lying. He will come to you and say there's a pain in a particular area, but there are no skin lesions over there. That is the situation known as zoster sine herpeti. Okay, so now what are the complications that the patient can have? The most common complication that you have is post-herpetic neuralgia. The nerve in that area, there is pain in the nerve, post-herpetic neuralgia, most common complication. Jahan par bhi rash hua tha, the patient will say that for many, many months after that, in that area, maybe the forehead, maybe it's going to be the back. So in that area, I'm having a lot of pain. So post-herpetic neuralgia is the most common complication. What else? You can see the involvement of the forehead and the eye over here. That is known as zoster ophthalmicus, है ना? So zoster ophthalmicus में कौन सा अल्सर होगा? I've already told you herpes can cause dendritic corneal ulcers. And which ganglion must have been affected? Trigeminal ganglion. तभी तो it is going to result in eye and forehead वाला lesions. ठीक है, what else? Have you heard of something called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome? That's another very famous complication that you had. So before I get to it, number 1, most common post-herpetic neuralgia. Number 2, zoster ophthalmicus. Number 3, Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. Now, Ramsay-Hunt syndrome is involvement of, yes guys, it is the involvement of what? The 7th nerve geniculate ganglion. It is the involvement of the geniculate ganglion of the 7th geniculate ganglion of the 7th nerve. So what all is the patient going to have? Patient is going to have 7th nerve. So facial nerve palsy is going to happen in Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. Then there are gonna be vesicles which are going to be present over the external auditory meatus. You know EAM, external auditory meatus. And apart from that, there is ear pain also. So there is otalgia. What else? There is a loss of taste sensation. There is a loss of taste sensation in the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. In the anterior 2/3 of the tongue, there is a loss of pain sensation, taste sensation. So repeating once again, there is facial nerve palsy, which obviously is making sense. There are vesicles that are present in the external auditory meatus with ear pain, otalgia, and there is loss of taste in the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. That is the Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which you have to know, involving the 7th nerve geniculate ganglion. Very important. So you will say that, ma'am, one thing I have understood, that overall in herpes zoster, someone had this in childhood and then it got reactivated. फिर वो dermatomal painful lesions हुआ when the person got old because it was somewhere sleeping in some ganglion, geniculate ganglion, trigeminal ganglion. Okay, it was sitting over there, hiding. I've understood all of that. But this means that some other people, like I'm saying, if I for example had chickenpox when I was in my 3rd or 4th class, so ideally the situation is that I should have an immunity for a lifelong. But is that so? No. Now they are saying that we might need zoster vaccines to enhance the immunity, because they are saying that with age maybe the antibody levels decrease. So they have come out with 2 vaccines. One is a live attenuated vaccine. One is a recombinant vaccine. This is for just enhancing your immunity. That is, if you've had chickenpox once and you want to enhance that, after 50 years of age, they give it. So what is it going to be? One is known as, their names will only tell you, Zostavax. So Zosta for zoster, Vax for vaccination, Zostavax. And zoster is also known as shingles ना, तो recombinant vaccine का नाम है Shingrix. Simple. Live attenuated में तो उन्होंने live नाम रखा, zoster का live नाम रखा, that is Zostavax. Recombinant पे कुछ recombine करा, कुछ different name रखा, so they named it after shingles, that is Shingrix. You will remember it? Perfect. And that finishes off 3 things, guys. We are done with human herpes virus 1, 2 and 3. Very good. Now I move on to human herpes virus 4, which is Epstein-Barr virus. Please note, you all know Epstein-Barr virus causes a disease called kissing disease. Kissing disease means it is gonna spread by kissing, of course, which indirectly means close contact. And close contact would also mean sexual intercourse. Can it spread via blood and bone marrows? Yes. So note, any kind of close contact, be it kissing, be it sexual intercourse, or having any kind of transfusions and transplants like bone marrow, blood transfusion, उन सब से Epstein-Barr virus is gonna occur. And I don't want to teach you anything about Epstein-Barr virus, because even in pathology I have taught you so much in neoplasia chapter, but we will still talk about it. Okay, so when I come to Epstein-Barr virus, this is the virus that you have over here. The first question that you will be asked is, which cell of the body is it gonna come and attack? And I have taught you this concept in this immunology chapter of micro also. Tell me, everything that comes in the body first goes on whom? First has to go to the T cell. Pehle you have to go and, it's like matha tekna hai T cell ke samne. So you have to go and give your wishes to T cell, and then T cell will take you forward to the B cell. EBV says, no, I don't have so much of time. I'm not going to first I'll go to T cell, then I'll go to B cell. I am VIP. I'll skip the queue, I will directly go to B cell. So it causes polyclonal B cell activation. It says, I have approach, I'm VVIP, I will directly go to the B cells. And that is a question that has come. Everything and every word, this entire slide is going to be like golden, very important. Question number 1, Epstein-Barr virus is gonna go and affect which cell of the body? So EBV is gonna go in the B cell. Question number 2. How does it enter the B cell? That is a question that has come so many times. What is the receptor? CD21CR2. The entry of Epstein-Barr virus into B cell is via CD21CR2. After entering, now they will ask you that, can you please tell me that what are the different kind of molecules that EBV has? Yes, it has something known as LMP1, then it has EBNA2, and then it is going to have viral interleukin 10. Guys, if you remember from pathology, interleukin 10 kya tha? Was it pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory? We used to do one mnemonic. We had done an-10 inflammatory, which is the only interleukin which is anti-inflammatory, that is 10 wala. So we had learned an-10. Anti-inflammatories and 10 inflammatory. So this will stop the inflammation. See, virus is so smart. Virus ko syllabus pata hai. Virus has read all our lectures. Epstein-Barr virus knows that if I by chance have interleukin 10, I will be able to stop the inflammation. This human being will not be able to have any inflammation and this human being will not be able to kill me. So dekho, virus is carrying his interleukin with himself. Virus knows, syllabus leaped. Virus knows if I carry interleukin, this person will not be able to put any inflammation against me. So remember, it is viral interleukin 10 which is going to stop the inflammation in my body. Okay, this we've understood. Now let's go to LMP1 and EBNA2. What does LMP1 do? LMP1 acts on the CD40 pathway. Guys, do you remember what was CD40 pathway? Too much of patho coming here. You have done it in immunology, in micro also. CD40 receptor, CD40 ligand, if this pathway gets acted upon, what is going to happen? Your NF-kappa B, so many pathways will get activated. All your antibodies will start forming. Hai na? So LMP1 has basically started acting on the CD40 pathway. What does EBNA2 do? EBNA2 is actually going to go and activate this is a question that has come in a lot of exams. It is going to activate the SRC proto-oncogene. They ask you that SRC proto-oncogene is going to be activated by what? It is going to be activated by EBNA2. So let's do a repeat. All of these, what will they eventually cause? Cancers hone wale hain abhi eventually. So hang on. Remember, firstly, what all does Epstein-Barr virus has? It has 1 to 10. It has 1 to 10. Okay? EBV has 1 to 10. 1 matlab LMP1 which is going to act on the CD40 pathway. 2 means it's going to activate the SRC proto-oncogene, and interleukin 10 is anti-inflammatory. Question 1. EBV was going into which cells? B cells. Via which receptor? CD21CR2. Now tell me, what does EBV cause? What are the clinical features? I just told you it causes infectious mononucleosis. So first we'll go one by one. What is infectious mononucleosis? What do you understand by it? Please note, this is, you know, the very, very famous kissing disease. The other name of infectious mononucleosis is going to be kissing disease because it spreads by close contact. And there's another name given to it, and that is known as glandular fever. Another name given to it is glandular fever. So the incubation period is roughly 1 to 2 months or 4 to 8 weeks as you want to learn it. And there are so many symptoms that occur. So जो main वाला symptom है पहले वो सुन लो. Glandular fever and kissing disease. So kissing disease tells me that the spread of this is going to be by close contact, isn't it? And glandular fever is going to tell me that the patient is going to have fever and the patient's glands are going to be enlarged. Kaun sa glands? Maybe ma'am, there are some salivary glands that are going to be enlarged, some lymph nodes are going to be enlarged, some spleen is going to be enlarged. So organs enlarge honge. That is why there are glands, glandular fever. So now we have said कि देखो kissing की वजह से हो रहा है तो the girl is blushing. She is feeling shy and she is turning red, lal, red cheeks. ठीक है? So because of kissing disease, she is saying she is feeling shy and lal. That means first you pick up all the organs that can get affected. S for, like I told you, spleen. So H has to be for the liver. It's going to be hepatitis, and E stands for encephalitis. So these were the different organs that could be affected. So she, I have understood. She is feeling very, very hot. Matlab fever. Of course, fever to hoga. A fever ke saath think of some symptoms. Of course, everyone has sore throat, and glands mein you're forgetting the lymph node. So L will stand for lymph node. What else? There is going to be arthralgia and lethargy, if you can learn. The least importance. I've put it in an order of importance also. So she matlab splenomegaly, hepatitis, encephalitis, fever, sore throat, lymph node, and then you have arthralgia and the lethargy. So she is feeling shy and lal, lymph node arthralgia, lethargy. If you forget everything in the exam, remember कि glandular fever था तो organs are enlarged and fever is gonna occur. Kissing disease तो close contact. So you've understood what is infectious mononucleosis. Done with infectious mononucleosis, very good. Now coming to the next one. The next one that it's famous for causing is a lot of malignancies, not one or two, a lot of malignancies. What all malignancies do I know? There is something known as a carcinoma. Next, there is something known as lymphomas. And finally, we have something called sarcomas. So now tell me, which are the carcinomas that you have? I know all of you are going to answer number one pe sabse everyone answers nasopharyngeal carcinoma is very, very important. However, the most common carcinoma is not this. The most common carcinoma is gastric carcinoma. Okay? So gastric carcinoma is the most common, which is again a question. Ye carcinomas the. The only sarcoma that can occur is leiomyosarcoma, smooth muscle wala, leiomyosarcoma. And what about the lymphoma? We all know lymphoma is of two types, Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Under Hodgkin's lymphoma, you usually have the mixed cellularity wala. Although guys, there are a lot of, the entire classical Hodgkin's lymphoma family is associated with Epstein-Barr virus. So mixed cellularity in India is most common, but otherwise all the classical Hodgkin's lymphoma have EBV association. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma may you have the very famous Burkitt's lymphoma. You've seen these, all these things I've taught you in pathology. Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. You can even have after transplantation, there is a post-transplant lymphoma. There is a post-transplant lymphoma. In fact, now I want to break the news to you that although you're talking about, देखो Hodgkin's क्या था? B-cell lymphoma, Burkitt's B-cell lymphoma, DLBCL B-cell lymphoma. Can it also have T and NK cell lymphomas? Yes, वो भी possible है. तो EBV तो has created like a big thing out here. Everything is possible with EBV, है ना? So it can also cause the T or the NK cell lymphomas over here. So I realize it can cause carcinoma, most common gastric. It can cause lymphoma, Hodgkin, non-Hodgkin both. And the only sarcoma that it causes, leiomyosarcoma. So coming all the way back, malignancy ho gaya. What are other conditions? There is a situation known as Duncan syndrome. Duncan syndrome क्या होता है? So remember, Duncan syndrome is known as the lymphoproliferative disorder. Again, have I taught you immunology section? देख लिया? Duncan syndrome or lymphoproliferative disorder is associated with which disease or which defect? It is seen in people with SAP gene defect. It is associated with SAP gene defect. X-linked lymphoproliferative disorder, I have taught you Duncan syndrome. That EBV infection is seen in SAP gene defect. ठीक है. Hairy cell leukemia, hairy cell leukoplakia. See now, sometimes we make a mistake and it's in the good way. Like I said, like I will never want anyone to edit this out also. I'll say, I ended up saying hairy cell leukemia. It's good I made that mistake. Because is it hairy cell leukemia? No, read the question carefully in the exam. Guys, where did you study hairy cell leukemia? Hairy cell leukemia pathology में पढ़ा था मैम. Hairy cell leukemia had nothing to do with Epstein-Barr virus. It was associated with BRAF mutation. And if you've heard my pathology lectures, you know the story of that viral TikTok boy over here, right? So you know it's a very hilarious story. That was totally different. This is oral hairy leukoplakia that I have, which is with Epstein-Barr virus. So like I ended up fumbling out here. Don't do that. Okay, coming to the next. Hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, also known as HLH. Recent exam question. Hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, one of the most common causes is EBV. So these are all the EBV related things. Infectious mononucleosis, malignancies, Duncan and oral hairy leukoplakia is very important. Now coming to the diagnosis. The first thing, again, these are 4 headings. I will take them up one by one. So सबसे पहले what are we going to do? We are going to do microscopy. Let's assume that we have a case of infectious mononucleosis. What are you going to see on a blood sample? On a blood sample, I see something known as, see, you will say, ma'am, है तो lymphocyte का problem. EBV was going to the B cells. ठीक है, तो B lymphocytes. It is an lymphocyte ka problem. So I start seeing atypical lymphocytes. Have they given these any fancy name? Yes, these are known as the Downey cells. What are Downey cells? If you can see like a ballet skirt ka appearance, the Downey cell cytoplasm is like a ballerina skirt. So this is said to have a ballerina skirt appearance. This is said to have a ballerina skirt appearance. Very, very important. That is known as downy cell. But now you will ask me, ma'am, lymphocyte to hai, and that lymphocyte got activated. Which lymphocyte? B lymphocyte or T lymphocyte? What is the composition? Or rather than saying composition, I'll say origin. Remember, these are CD8 T lymphocytes, and that is where students get confused. Dekho, there are two questions. If I ask you, Epstein-Barr virus entered into which cells of the body? EBV enters into which cells? B cells. So B cell to bichara has been hijacked. How will the B cell make any ballet skirt? Not possible. So B cell calls his cousin brother T cell. He says, "Arey, listen, cousin brother T cell, I have been hijacked. Can you please come?" So then this cousin brother CD8 T cell, like a Superman, like one of the Batman, Superman and superheroes, takes a cape out. So cape nikal ke, like a ballerina skirt, runs towards his cousin brother to save him like a superhero. So please remember that if someone asks you what is this cape wala ballerina skirt appearance, this is the CD8 T cell flying on its way to save his cousin brother B cell. Downy cell, very, very famous. So microscopy, ho gaya. What are the other tests that you have? The second test that we have is the heterophile agglutination or antibody testing. What are the two tests that you have under it? There is something known as the Paul Bunnell test, and the second one is going to be the monospot test. Paul Bunnell pehle karte the, monospot is more of a recent thing. So remember, Paul Bunnell test, firstly you need to go back to your chapter of immunology and tell me what was heterophile. Heterophile basically means that the antibodies are gonna react with some other species only. Antibodies have come from whom? Antibodies have come from patient. I have taken blood sample from patient. After taking the blood sample from patient, I am making it react with some other species only. They are going to react with sheep red blood cells. They are going to react with sheep red blood cells. So if that hetero, different species ka reaction is occurring, that is Paul Bunnell test. Monospot test, it's also a modified version of it. The antibodies are going to react with horse RBCs. So sirf species is changing, otherwise the concept is the same, that with some other species RBCs, antibodies are reacting. Now, for some people who like to study a little extra, remember that in a Paul Bunnell test, it is said that a titer of 1:256 is suggestive of infectious mononucleosis. A titer of 256 is suggestive of infectious mononucleosis. Let me tell you, Paul Bunnell thoda purana hai. Now, what is being done nowadays is the monospot test. And please note, there will be a lengthy question, but in the end, if they say monospot test is positive, that means they are trying to hint you towards Epstein-Barr virus. So what all have you done? Number one, you did microscopy, downy cell, ho gaya. Heterophile antibody test, Paul Bunnell monospot, done. But those were non-specific. Tell me some specific antibody tests. You say, acha, let me think. What all did my Epstein-Barr virus had? It had LMP1, EBNA2. So antibodies against EBNA2, they can be specific. Antibodies against the viral capsid antigen. Every virus has a capsid, that is specific. Antibody to early antigen. Remember, antibody to early antigen is going to be used in the early diagnosis of Epstein-Barr virus. But put your common sense into the fact, what is going to be the most sensitive and specific? Of course, nothing can beat PCR or genetics. Nucleic acid hybridization test is going to be the most sensitive and specific. Finally, lab diagnosis done. Downy cell, Paul Bunnell monospot test done, antibody test done, the genetic testing is done. Now we come to the treatment, which is of course going to be acyclovir for oral hairy leukoplakia and rituximab, because you have a lot of B cell cancers involved. So rituximab, which is anti-CD20, can help in that also. ठीक है, तो अब HHV4 is also done. Guys, what was human herpes virus 5? And that was cytomegalovirus. Please note, cytomegalovirus, the word only tells you megalo, it is big. It is the largest virus of this family. Dhyan se padna, which is the largest? Next, last time I'm asking you, so many times I've asked you. Largest DNA virus is pox virus, but the largest virus of the herpes viridae family is the cytomegalovirus, and we happen to be the only reservoirs. How is the transmission? Most commonly is by the same oral and any kind of secretions. Oral secretion, respiratory, body secretions. But can cytomegalovirus also go in blood transfusions and mother to child? Yes, possible hai. It can go in transplacental, mother to child. It can go in blood transfusions and sexual routes. Very much possible. Yes, it is there. So although in our country, whenever there is blood donation, we don't test for cytomegalovirus. But in foreign countries, cytomegalovirus is mandatory to test in blood donation banks, in blood banks. In our, you have to look at the epidemiology. हमारे में HIV, hepatitis are more commonly tested. CMV is not, but my purpose of telling you that is CMV can go via blood products also. Now I'm going to tell you, see, cytomegalo, अब largest virus है तो उसे कुछ ऐसा give it some importance ना, तो we are going to call it Shah Rukh Khan. So now tell me cytomegalo, that Shah Rukh Khan का mega वाला action everyone knows. So remember cytomegalo is going to have that mega वाला action. So tell me, who is working? Shah Rukh Khan. So when Shah Rukh Khan is working, remember Shah Rukh Khan is working, that is he's multiplying. Versus Shah Rukh Khan will also want to go and sleep at night. Where does he go and sleep? He goes and sleep in his Land's End house, that is Mannat. So remember SRK, when he is working with his arms out, he is working, means where does cytomegalovirus multiply? Most common location is salivary gland. Some people even call it the salivary gland virus. Other than that, also the respiratory tract and the kidney. So remember, it multiplies in the salivary gland, the respiratory tract, kidney. That is why I said SRK. Salivary gland, respiratory tract, kidney. But where does he go to sleep? He has to go to sleep in Mannat. Where does he go and become latent? Mannat means Mannat monocyte. He goes and sleeps finally in Mannat. So from today onwards, when you will see Mannat, you will think of monoth. ठीक है, monocyte. Monocyte में जाके he is gonna sleep off. So Shah Rukh Khan is multiplying in salivary gland, respiratory and kidney and going and sleeping in Mannat. That is monocyte. That is the story of cytomegalovirus. All the kids who are SRK fans just like me would love this mnemonic. Now let's move on further and do the infections. So either there can be a congenital infection, say mother to child, somewhere around that area, perinatal, someone who is perfectly fine, immunocompetent, or someone who is HIV positive and immunocompromised. 4 situations. Congenital is what they love asking you questions on, so let me start with that. Congenital cytomegalovirus is one of the most common things to cross the placenta. The most common intrauterine infection associated with congenital defects out of so many torch infections, CMV is the most common one to cross the placenta. So what are the common features that are going to occur and what are the less common ones? So pehle padh lo, and then after that I'm going to make a cute little diagram for you. So please remember, these patients have hepatosplenomegaly, hepato hai to jaundice hoga, and also has some kind of bleeding manifestations on the skin. There are petechiae purpura. Sometimes they're also known as blueberry muffin baby, but blueberry muffin baby is used in so many places that this word has majorly been diluted. So remember, hepatosplenomegaly, jaundice and petechiae and purpura. Less common में, they have microcephaly, chorioretinitis, cerebral calcification. And which kind of cerebral calcification? Please note, periventricular calcification. In fact, they can also have deafness. Deafness is another thing that has been affiliated with them. कैसे याद करेंगे मैम? We will make this thing. What is this? Bacha. I tried to make a bacha and I tried to write CMV around him. I have written C like this. C have been his ears. M have been the cap that I've made him wear, and V has been the, not a bacha now, he's going to be a beard that he has, CMV. So now what all do I have to think of? I have to think of M, say microcephaly. We are going to think of microcephaly. We can also think of mental retardation. The C is going to tell you something to do with ears. So yes, is the child going to have deafness? But C se banaya tha, so this means there can be chorioretinitis also, chorioretinitis and deafness. And what is the reason for calling it V? Because many people forget that where is the calcification occurring? Is it occurring in the parenchyma of the brain, or is it occurring periventricular? So remember, it is occurring periventricular calcification is going to occur. So coming back, now you don't have to learn these such a long list. Isi mein I will add that these patients in their body can have involvement of the liver and can have involvement of the spleen. So we have made the 2 organs also. Hepatosplenomegaly and jaundice is also possible. Microcephaly, chorioretinitis, deafness, cerebral calcification, consa calcification, periventricular, because the same thing is also associated when toxoplasmosis occurs in children. You must have seen toxoplasma occurring in children. There is a cerebral parenchymal calcification. It occurs in the parenchyma of the brain. There is a parenchymal calcification that occurs. But in cytomegalovirus, there is a periventricular calcification that occurs. That is why I've given you this mnemonic, CMV. This man with a topi and a beard, that is what you will remember. So which kind of infection was this, guys? This was the congenital infection. What is happening in perinatal? So perinatal, usually immediately the child is not going to show you any, complications, because it's happened somewhere around delivery, the exposure has happened. So for a great time, the child is asymptomatic. Later on, he might end up showing you complications. Now coming to people who are immunocompromised. Immunocompromised could be people who are having HIV or people who are having a transplantation. They are all people who are under immunosuppressive drugs or are immunocompromised. One of the most common things that they have is CMV, chorioretinitis. In fact, let me tell you, the most common opportunistic infection in viruses, most common opportunistic infection in viruses in HIV and in transplantation is going to be the cytomegalovirus. तो कोई भी immunocompromised state होगा, and they say which virus is going to be most commonly found in that state. It is CMV. What does it affect the most? Chorioretinitis, but it can affect all organs of the body. Whereas if the immunity is बढ़िया, if immunity is very good, you will say, ma'am, immunity अच्छा है तो छोटा मोटा thing will happen. Little bit of fever, little bit of some minor things will happen. That is known as infectious mononucleosis-like syndrome. Now, please note, infectious mononucleosis-like बोला है. I have not called it infectious mononucleosis because infectious mononucleosis was caused by EBV. And infectious mononucleosis-like means क्या like है? There is minor things. Chota fever and sore throat is still there, but big things are not there. So guys, tell me, infectious mononucleosis का दूसरा नाम, what was the other name? It was glandular fever. So you will say, ma'am, वो fever वाला element तो है, but the main thing, that is the salivary gland, the lymph node, the spleen, वो वाला element is not there. Especially lymph node and spleen is not there. So remember, the glandular element is not there, but the fever element is there. And next difference is, did infectious mononucleosis for Epstein-Barr virus show you the famous Paul Bunnell test and the monospot test? मतलब वो heterophile antibodies दिख रहा था ना? Infectious mononucleosis like will not show you that, it's not that no antibodies, there are no heterophile antibodies. So those Paul Bunnell test and those monospot tests will not be seen. Okay, so please note, the one very important point written in the paper will be the Paul Bunnell test, or they can write the monospot test. In this situation is going to be negative. So remember, the fever part is there, glandular part is not there, and the heterophile antibodies are not there. That is why it is infectious mononucleosis like. So if I come back to the different agendas that I have, the congenital wala you will always remember because I have made a cute little kid for you. So you will always remember that. Perinatal is usually asymptomatic. Immunocompromised HIV patients में chorioretinitis, and immunocompetent में it causes infectious mononucleosis like. Paul Bunnell नहीं आएगा. तो क्या आएगा? What is the lab diagnosis for CMV? Come on, this I'm not going to tell you. This is chapter 1. Cytomegalovirus is going to show you what? The very famous owl-eye appearance. Owl-eye appearance means that the cytoplasm also has this bunch of inclusions and the nucleus also has a bunch of inclusions. So this is the one that shows you both intranuclear and intracytoplasmic inclusions. How are you going to do the virus isolation? This also go back to chapter 1. Sab to padha hai. The virus isolation is going to be done on a cell line, and I told you which is the most famous cell line which you use for cytomegalovirus, and that is the human fibroblast cell line. Now tell me, human fibroblast cell line is primary, secondary or continuous? Dekho, if you remember, it was a secondary cell line. But on what sample will you take and grow on this cell line? So the best sample that you use is urine washings, because cytomegalovirus tends to cause, transplant patients may tends to go and cause kidney problems. So urine washings is what you will take, and what cell line will you grow it on? Human fibroblast cell line. Antibody detection के लिए हमेशा we will use ELISA. But the story is, what will you use over here for antigen, and which antigen are you trying to detect? That is their favorite most question. So you are trying to detect PP65. PP65 antigen is for cytomegalovirus, and finally the most definitive has to be polymerase chain reaction. Sorted for everyone. So we have owl-eye appearance. This question I am expecting. In CMV, you will take urine washings and grow it on human fibroblast cell line. Antigen ka naam hai PP65, and PCR is what you do. Finally, coming to the treatment, which is of course going to be the ganciclovir. And if there is resistance, what do you use? You always use foscarnet. Guys, human herpes virus 5, that is cytomegalovirus, is done. Now I'm left with chota wala, that is human herpes virus 6, 7 and 8, out of which 6 and 7 are almost same, तो साथ साथ पढ़ते हैं. What am I saying? Human herpes virus 6 पढ़ते हैं, then 7 copy paste कर देना, ठीक है? This much work you can do, 7 copy paste. So human herpes virus 6 is gonna cause everything to do with 6. So if I ask you how many variants does it have, you will say there is something called 6A and something called 6B. Okay. How is the mode of infection? 6 की तरह it is secretions. The mode of infection is secretions. So I'll learn it as secretions. Okay, that's sounding like a tongue twister, but secretions is going to be the mode of infection. कौन सा disease कराएगा? It is going to cause the 6th disease in children. So in children, it causes the 6th disease known as roseola infantum or exanthum subitum, which I'll come to. But how did it cause? If you remember, human herpes virus 6, 7, ये सब कहाँ जा रहे थे? First slide, alpha, beta, gamma families. I told you they go to the T cells. They bind to the T cells via CD46 receptor. How simple. Let's repeat. The human herpes virus 6 has two types, that is 6A and 6B. It enters our body via oral secretions. It is going to cause the 6th disease known as roseola infantum or 6th disease, whatever you want to call it. And how does it attack the T cells? Via CD46. So, ये क्या है? What is the 6th disease that you have? So you call it roseola infantum or exanthum subitum. So number 1, the child, as you can see there's a child, the child is number 1 going to have fever, as you can see over here. Fever के साथ साथ, as he is having fever, you will see these reddish spots on the soft palate and the uvula. On the soft, you can see na, not on the hard palate, आगे वाला hard palate. So not on the hard palate, I am seeing it on the soft palate region and somewhere near the uvula. These are the spots known as the Nagayama spots. These spots are referred to as the Nagayama spots. They are what? They are the erythematous spots. They are a little reddish in color. So they are erythematous spots which you see on the soft palate and the uvula. After that, once the fever will go away, there is a rash that is going to come. And you can see this pinkish color non-pruritic rash. Pinkish non-pruritic rash is going to be seen. So let's repeat. What is the 6th disease or roseola infantum or exanthum subitum? Fever hoga. Fever ke saath there are going to be Nagayama spots which are going to be present in the oral and the soft palate region. And then once the fever is going away, then there is rash that is coming up. But this is happening in children. As I said, this was something happening in children. Is there something that will happen in adults? Yes, infectious mononucleosis-like syndrome. Abhi we studied it for CMV also, na? So this also in adults causes the same thing. Fever wala component hai, glandular wala component nahi hai. And when you have the Paul Bunhill test, no. Same story, copy paste. ठीक है, now human herpes virus 6 is done, 7 भी साथ में हो गया. But I just wanted to ask you one thing. If you have read the rest of virology before earlier, is that this is what? This is Nagayama spots. And I have studied that you see it in the 6th disease, roseola infantum. What is Nakayama? Nakayama is a strain. Nakayama is a strain. Beijing, Nakayama, ये strains कहाँ थे? This is strain used for the vaccine of Japanese encephalitis. So in a while, if you've not read, you will come, that will be Nakayama strain. This is Nagayama spots. Please don't get confused. Okay, now finally we come to the last one, human herpes virus 8, and this is famous for causing 3 things. The first one is going to be the famous Kaposi's sarcoma. We all know Kaposi's sarcoma is a vascular tumor. Quickly tell me, does this occur in immunocompromised, immunocompetent? हो सकता है, but most commonly associated with HIV, or in other words, you can say immunocompromised individuals. It is seen in immunocompromised states. Next question, what is the most common site? The most common site is going to be the lower limb, and that to the skin. It's a reddish lesion, a pinkish reddish, or they say purplish lesion. बहुत ज़्यादा vascular है ना? Vascular tumor है तो blood वाला component is more. So the most common site is the skin of the lower limb. So now after this they will ask you second most common site. So second most common site is going to be the lymph node. That is Kaposi's sarcoma. As I said, it's a vascular tumor. All details I have taught you in pathology. Integrate karo, that is how you will be able to study. So the same things I taught you in patho. It is associated with HIV. Most common site is the lower limb ka skin. Other second most common site is going to be the lymph node. Let's integrate the second thing. What is the next thing that it causes? There is something known as primary effusion lymphoma. Have I taught you this in pathology as well? Yes, primary effusion lymphoma is caused by human herpes virus 8. B cell lymphoma hai. You have studied it. How is the patient going to present? Clinically, patient has a lot of effusions. That is the hint I told you, that patient will have pleural effusion, pericardial effusion. बहुत सारा effusion का history होगा and कुछ lymphoma होगा. तो think of primary effusion lymphoma caused by human herpes virus 8. Coming to the third one, and the third disease is a Castleman disease. The third disease is a Castleman disease, which is a lymph node disorder. Disease है, cancer नहीं है. देखो, ये first वाला cancer था, second वाला cancer था. Castleman disease is not a cancer. So these are the things that you had to know. Please note, human herpes virus 8 causes Kaposi sarcoma, primary effusion lymphoma, and Castleman disease. The last point is going to be only important for students going for INICT, maybe for NEET PG aspirants. FMG के लिए important नहीं है. So what is this? This is a classical picture which I am correlating from your pathology. This is a case of Castleman disease. How did I identify? I identified by the presence of these lollipop follicles. What is this lollipop follicles that you're going to see? So first you'll say that, ma'am, I see that Castleman disease kahan hai? You are saying, ma'am, lymph node mein hai. So I realize lymph node mein the cells are going round and round like this. So lymph node mein the cells are going round and like this. So there is an onion skinning of the lymphocytes. There is an onion skinning of the lymphocytes. And if you remember from pathology, they were the mantle zone wala lymphocytes. And through this onion skinning of lymphocytes, you see that there is a blood vessel going. There is a blood vessel going through and through this. So I will show you that blood vessel. Tabhi it's looking like a lollipop now. Can you see there is an onion skinning, there's a roundish appearance of those blue color lymphocytes, and then I can see one blood vessel is going through it. So what is this looking like? It's looking like a lollipop. So it shows you the presence of lollipop follicles. So remember, a man is having fun by eating lollipop in the castle. So remember, man is having fun eating lollipop in the castle. So what are the three diseases that HHV8 causes? Kaposi sarcoma, primary effusion lymphoma, and Castleman disease. And on that note, you finish off all of your herpes viridae family that we started. This is the lengthiest of DNA viruses. After this, the rest of the DNA viruses are very chota, very quick. So we have finished all of these, and I hope you have been able to understand the same.